Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Virendranath. I'm a panelist at Starof. Okay, so today our topic is going to be Java server pages in Java programming. So, okay, before going into the topic, so I would like to give some inputs like what is going to be JSP and so what are the things and where it is going to be used and all those kind of stuff I want to give you a note on. So generally, whenever I'm talking about JSP or Java server pages, so let me give you a general idea where we can generally use it. Okay, so let me open up a note wherein I can make this. Okay, so make this note. So basically, you might have heard something about client server programming. So whenever I talk about client server programming, so client server programming is all about having a client requesting to the server, having a client requesting to the server. So let me add up a new page basically. Okay, so having a client requesting the server. Okay, let me just show you how a client. So basically, here is a client. So client will basically request to the server. Client will basically request to the server. Okay, so basically what we are looking at here, we are looking at the front end. So this is basically known as the front end. So front end and server programming is all about the back end. So basically we call this as front end and back end. So whenever I'm talking about front end, so front end is all about the UI UX technologies basically. So UI UX technologies generally, whenever I'm talking about UI UX technologies, so it is all about HTML programming, CSS programming, so JavaScript, Bootstrap, jQuery, React.js. So what all this, these are all the client side technologies that are built up. Okay. So client side technologies which will give the user the interface. So which will give the user the interface. So that is what is basically the client end. So now I'm talking about the server. So where you have to develop the server side program. So what exactly are server side programs? So you have something like servlets. You have something like JSP. Okay, when you go to Python environment, you have something like Django. So you have something like Flask. So these are all these server side technologies which will help us to build the client server technologies. Okay, so basically what we are looking at here, so we are looking at a client. So client means where the user will get an interface to connect, to request, basically to request. So requesting. So what he does, he makes a request. So what kind of request he makes? He can make any kind of request, right from a website request, right from a web page request, right from any kind of request he can make. So those all requests are sent to this server. And what a server is the one which will take the request, process the request, and gives the response back to the client. So what basically we are talking about? We are talking about a client server environment and a request reply protocol. Okay. So now at the server end, when you are a Java expert, you are going to build the servlets programs, you are going to build JSP programs. So if you are a Python expert, you are going to build Django application or Flask application, etc., etc., etc. So what exactly I'm talking about here? I'm talking about the programmers building the servlet applications or the JSP application. So servlets. So in the last of my sessions, I discussed about the servlets. In today's session, I would like to go on with the JSP. So JSP stands for Java Server Pages. So what exactly is Java Server Pages going to be? So Java Server Pages are going to be the server side pages, so which will be containing the information more than HTML. More than HTML. Why I'm saying you? Because it contains the code. It contains the code which will be enabling us to provide the dynamic content, which will be providing us the dynamic content. So basically, whenever I'm talking about JSP programming, so JSP programming always allows us to have the static, always allows us to have the dynamic content. So dynamic content into simple HTML pages. Okay. So simple HTML pages, so we can have the dynamic content. So basically, as I've told you, we will make the request. So we will make the request to the Java servlet. Okay. So what we'll be doing? So we will be making a request to the Java servlet. Okay. So generally, so and that servlet will be helpful for taking the request, giving the or processing the request and giving back the response. So that is the general ideology of a servlet. So then what exactly is JSP? As I told you, JSP is nothing but which is written something like HTML code. So which is written something like HTML code, and at the end of the day, it will be converting into servlet itself. It will be converting into a servlet itself, because servlet will have all the Java enabled services. All the Java enabled services are there with the servlets only. Okay, so basically what JSP technology is used for, it is used for working with web applications. It is used for working with web applications, building the web pages. All of them will be used for creating the web technologies. Okay, creating the web technology. So basically, whenever you talk about JSP, you will be asking me a question. So anyhow, we have servlets. Why we need to go for the JSP? Okay, so now, for example, if I'm building a servlet, so the maintenance will be very high for a servlet. So maintenance will be very high for a servlet. So what we can do is, so we can minimize the maintenance by maintaining a JSP page. By maintaining a JSP page, we can minimize the maintenance time, or you can say development time. So by taking into consideration the JSP, so that is a main advantage. And as it is like a tag based library, you don't have to remember lengthy codes, and you don't have to remember the things like a lot of libraries. And also, that is what is the advantage of using a JSP over the service. But at the end of the day, remember, so JSPs are converted into servlets only. So in order to show you how the conversion will take place, let me give you a general idea. So now here is where you request, here is where you put the request, So sorry, you develop the page. So what you are going to develop, a JSP page. So what JSP will, what the page will happen to be? The page will happen to be a servlet. So what it happens to be? It happens to be a servlet. So, but how that translation will go on? So we will be having a translator. So the translator is responsible for converting the JSP into a servlet. So the JSP into a servlet, and that servlet again will have to be converted into a Java class file. So it has to be object-oriented programming, right? So definitely it has to be converted into a class file. So initially what we did here, as a programmer, we have developed a JSP page. And that JSP page is translated into a servlet. So servlets, and that servlet is going to be compiled to become a class file. So once it becomes a class file, then it is the duty of the JVM to load it and create into servlet objects, and do the processing of the code. So generally, what I'm trying to say at the end of the day, I'm trying to say that you might be building a JSP, but at the end of the day, it will become a servlet only. Because servlet is the one which will be responsible for turning into a class file. So JSP file we cannot directly turn. Yeah. So basically, when you say JSP and servlet, so remember JSP is like a file which will be containing HTML style of code. So which will be containing HTML style of code. So that will be converted into servlet. Remember that. So that will be converted into servlet. So if you are saying JSP is equal to servlet, so if you are saying JSP is equal to servlet, it is not quite right. JSP is turned into servlet. So JSP is like extension over the HTML. It is like an extension over the HTML. So it exactly doesn't mean a servlet. So, but internally, it has to be converted into a servlet. So, okay, that is my point basically. Okay. So, hope the things are clear. So that is what happens when you are creating a JSP page. Okay, when you are creating a JSP page. So let us go into the details of those. So let us go into the details of those. So whenever we are talking about a JSP, so JSP, so this is your answer. So the answer for your question is JSP files are essentially which files? .html files. So what they are? They are .html files. So what they are? They are .html files. So generally HTML files are given by .html extension, whereas JSP files are given with the .jsp extension. Okay, .jsp extension, or you can say .jsp file. So basically, whenever you start writing a JSP file or start coding a JSP file, you should use the tag based library. So you should use the tag based library. Generally in HTML, what you do, you just try to use HTML tag and you try to close the HTML tag, something like this. But here you are going to use the tags. So there are different types of tags. There are different types of tags like directory tags, like so we have expression tags. All of them I'll be showing you in the example. Okay, so at the end, so here you are going to deal with the attributes like page attribute, like language attribute. So these are all the things that you will be dealing with. So at the top of the page you should have this content. So so what is this? This is a directive tag. Page content type is text HTML and language is equal to Java. So whenever I'm talking about JSP, it is an extension to HTML, and it is the one which is going to create the servlet for you. Okay, so that is the point. So then whenever we are talking about the syntax, so how we can generally make the JSP syntax. So we can generally make the JSP syntax by using a scriptlet tag. So this is generally got to be said as a scriptlet tag. So scriptlet tag, and this is like an XML based tag, so which we call it as JSP scriptlet tag only. So whenever you want to write the code, you can either write directly in the scriptlet tag, or you can also write it under the XML related scriptlet tag. So anyhow, anything is okay for us. So we can write a code within this scriptlet tag also, and within the JSP scriptlet tag also. So that is what is meant by. So that is what is meant by writing the Java code. So generally, what I said. So generally in HTML, so we will have very broad broad range of broad range of tags. But here, what we have to use, so we have to use some specialized tags like scriptlet tags, expression tags, and directive tags, and all those. So you can write your Java code. You can write your Java code here inside the scriptlet tag, and you can also use JSP scriptlet XML tag. So that is also fine. So for example, if I'm asking you to write a validation style of code, so basically this is Java code. So if I say you write the Java code, so for example, if condition, so this is a simple JSE code, okay, Java Standard Edition code. So Java, if condition, so and you will be executing a true statement over here. So otherwise you will be executing a false statement over here. But this is all Java code. Okay, so generally this is also inside the block, but here this I want to put it like an HTML content. So this I want to put it like an HTML content, and all this is the Java specific code. So if you see here, so I have put this Java code, I put this Java code inside the scriptlet tag, and this is HTML specific code only. So this is HTML specific code only. So when the conversion happens, okay, remember when the conversion happens, when the conversion happens, so what generally happens? So this will become a simple plain Java code. This will become a simple plain Java code, and this will be like pw.println as we have seen in our servlet code. So println, okay, so some line, okay, so in that way it will be getting converted into. So Java specific code only will be there in the scriptlet tags. But in the script, why we are using the scriptlet tags? Because scriptlet tags are the tags which will tell you to put the Java code, either you put it in scriptlet XML or you put it in general code. So here what we are trying to say at the end of the day, we are trying to say that so we can have an equivalent Java code inside the JSP. So this is how generally we write. At the end, as I've told you, I will be showing you the example also. Okay. So then what is the help that it is going to take? So this is generally the servlet code. So when you are saying servlet and this are almost similar. So you see that, so this is the servlet code. So this is the servlet code. So servlet code where, so this is a servlet code where we have a do get method. So what exactly is a do get method? Do get method is a method of HTTP servlet. So HTTP servlet. So generally what you have to do is, so you have to create a class which will extend the HTTP servlet, and then we will go for a do get method. So do get method will take two parameters, HTTP request and HTTP response. But as we have said that, okay, so do post is secure. Yes, do post is secure because do get is like for a get request. So it is all depends on the request. So get and post. So get request means so all your data will be exposed in your address bar. So that is why we go for the post request. Yes, but here just a simple example. So if it is a post request, so it will be a do post method. If it is a get request, it will be a do get method. Okay. So now coming back to this, so do get method is taking what parameters? Do get method is taking two parameters. What are those parameters? Servlet request parameter and HTTP servlet response parameter. So what we are trying to say at the end of the day, as we have to we cannot use this directly onto the JSP, onto the JSP page. So we take the help of the implicit objects. So implicit objects in the sense, these are the objects that will be raised internally when you develop the Java program, when you develop the JSP program. So generally what I'm trying to say, so implicit objects are the generated are the object generated by the JSP engine during the program compilation. So what I'm trying to say at the end of the day, implicit objects are the objects that are generated by the JSP engine automatically during the compilation. Okay. So what are the objects that are there? What are the implicit objects that are there? Let us understand. First, you have a request object. So whenever I'm talking about any client server atmosphere, just now I was referring to one point. If you remember at the beginning, I said the client puts a request and the server will be the one who will take the request. Server will be the one who will take the request, and the server will be the one who will be sending the response after processing the request. Now, if you see here, we have the request and response placed over here. Now, going back to this here, get request. Get request is taking HTTP servlet request object, and HTTP servlet response, the response object. So, which are responsible for taking the request and giving the response. So, these are now under. So, these are now under what? So, under the JSP implicit object. So, JSP implicit object request belongs to which class? It belongs to the Java X dot which class? Java X dot servlet dot HTTP servlet request. So now you can see here, this is what we are saying. The request object exposes all the user inputs data and makes it available server side. So coming back to our discussion, same thing that we discussed here, that is what it is. So now I made a request, so my request implicit object is making available all my requests onto the server. So that is the meaning of that line. So whenever we are talking about the request, so it is all the user inputs are available on the server side. So when I'm talking about response object, so what response object? Response object first of all belongs to what? It belongs to HTTP servlet response, and what it determines? It determines what is passed back to the client after a request is made. So that is what I said. After processing, the response is sent. So who will be responsible for sending that? Response implicit object. Okay. So if at all I want to take any request, so generally whenever I'm talking about, so let me give you a scenario where I can track the request. Okay, so let me give you a scenario. So right here I want to give you a scenario. So now let's say client is given with so generally say a client, or whenever you open a website, so let's say client is given with a login and password. So login and password. So he have to give these details. So these details must reach the server. So now login, suppose he is giving some name, something like say John. Okay, and password something like 432 he is giving. So now whenever the user or whenever the client request is made, so what we say? We say request, you get me this parameter. So request dot, okay, so get me this parameter in the sense I want this value to be read by the server. So generally what I say, I will use the request object. So that is what the point. So you can see request dot get parameter of message. So for example, so how that login was created? That login was created by using some input. Okay, by using some input. So this is all about the UI technique. So how the things are created? Input type is equal to text, name is equal to some message, let's say. So now get parameter of the message. So what is the parameter here? Get parameter of the message means whatever the name that client has typed on that. So that suppose say John. So that John will come and sit over in this message. Okay. So that is where your request dot get parameter will come into the picture. So request dot get parameter will get the requested message onto the Java program. So that is generally what is meant by yes. So request dot get parameter of message. Yes. Request dot get parameter of message means, so this message who has created, so UI has created that message. So UI from UI we are going to get that message. So these are the first two important implicit objects along with the next object, which is called out. So what is the next object? Next object is going to be out object. So what is this out object? Out object belongs to what? Out object belongs to JSP writer. JSP writer. So generally, whenever I'm saying out, out is meant for writing something out of this, out to the console. So to print in HTML page. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So to print in the HTML page. Yes, to print in the HTML page. So to print the hypertext. Exactly. So to print the hypertext, so we are going to use the out object. So out object, and next session object. So session object in the sense, so basically a client to server. So there will be some kind of session going on. So that session we call it as a request response session. So request response session. So that session details are to be maintained by saved session on server, something like that. So basically we'll be tracking the session by using this session object. And finally application. So application is nothing but which will be helpful for application wide parameters. So the total application wide parameters, so we will be taking track by using the application. So what are the 5 implicit objects that are very, very important? So first one is request, and the second one is going to be the response, and the third one is going to be out object. The fourth one is going to be the session object, and the fifth one is going to be the application object. So these are the ones which will be called as implicit objects. So they are the ones which are generated when the compilation of the program takes place. Okay. Now let us understand about some of the very, very important things when you refer to a JSP page. So when you refer to a JSP page, so there are some very, very important things to understand. Some of them are exception. So whenever I talk about exception, so let me just tell you about what is an exception. So to make it clear, whenever I say exception, exception is nothing but the error which comes generally at the runtime, So when some runtime error takes place, so when it might be a server issue, when it might be a client issue, or when it might be some payment gateway issue or something, so there should be a page to land it. Okay, so there should be a page to land it. So for saying that page is available for you, so we can use this is error page. So is error page is equal to true. We will be using so that the application will know whenever an error comes, you have to go to that page. So that is why we use the is error page. So what is this is error page will be helpful for? Is error page will be helpful for us to convey that an error page is available. So when there is any kind of error, in your application, so you have to land it to that page. So this is the option that will be helping us to do that. Okay, so next page. So page in the sense, just now we have seen at the beginning of the so we have seen that, so we generally write the page by using, we'll generally start the JSP by using page. So this is page means that this page content type is text HTML, and the character set it uses is UTF-8, and the language it goes on with is Java. So that is what is the page attribute over here. Okay. So page context. So page context is nothing but, so which will be giving you the scope for accessing the request, application, and of course the session attributes. And then you take up the config. So what does a config do? Config is going to uh, help you out with the configuration information of the pages. Okay, configuration information of the pages. And whenever we are talking about this page directive attributes, these attributes will help us to. So now, for example, if you see auto flush is nothing but what? Auto flush is nothing but it will be clearing you out the buffer. So whenever you are working with the client server environment, remember that you will be having so much of cache information. So much of cache information. So much of that information can be cleared up using this auto flush option. So auto flush option. So then you have buffer. So buffer. So you generally have 8 KB buffer size. I mean, so whenever you are streaming or whenever you are working with file systems or anything, so there will be a buffer of 8 KB by default. But generally, you can increase or put any number on that buffer. So, and finally, whenever you are talking about error page, so just now I said you that when ease error page is there, so what ease error page is going to deal with? Ease error page is going to tell you that so there is some error page in your application. Whenever you get an error, you have to travel back to that page. So then when you are looking at the error page, so page error page, so you will have a page to go for. So your control should go to a page. So which page is that? That is error handler.jsp page. So into that page, we will be taking up our request. Okay. And whenever you are talking about extending the properties of one more page, you can use the extends option. Now, for example, my JSP page want to take the properties of, so want to take the properties of the HTTP JSP base. So it can extend its property. It is like applying the concept of inheritance. It is like applying the concept of inheritance. When you are applying the concept of inheritance, all the properties of this HTTP JSP base will be taken into the present page. So that is what the, and then you have the info. So what is this info doing? So info is going to so this info is going to take up. So this info is going to take up whatever the information you want, the text-based information. So text-based information, so which will be taking up into the page. Okay, is ELI ignored in the sense expression language ignored. So generally what happens is so we have this option to be true when you want the expression language to be. So EL enables the presentation layer to communicate with the Java manager. So what I'm trying to say at the end of the day is, whenever you have this ELI to be ignored, so you can use this option. So generally, it is by default put to false. So whenever you don't want that expression language to be used by your page, so you can maintain this option to true. Okay. So is error page. So just now we talked about this is error page. So that is what it is. And then you also look at is thread safe. So generally, whenever you are talking about the application, the core application, so threading is an important concept as you know. So now our page also can be made thread safe. Means whenever I'm making my page thread safe, so what I'm trying to say to my page, I will say that you are going to be thread safe. You are going to be thread safe in the sense you are not going to allow concurrent programming. You are not going to allow concurrent programming. So generally it is said to be true. So when you are saying is thread safe false, then you are not going to have the multi-threading functionality, that is concurrent execution functionality. So you are going to not take it into consideration. So generally keeping it false is not recommended if at all you have the multi-threaded applications. If at all you have the multi-threaded, only one thread can access. Yes. Okay, so that is what it is. So generally that is not good, but still, when some applications like bank, that kind of applications, maybe because one time your login cannot be done by other people, right? So that is what it is. So it cannot be done from two different locations. So that is why the thread safe is meant for. So language. So language is equal to Java in the sense. So we are having the language set to Java. So session value, so trimming white spaces. So these are all the general things that we will be looking at for in our JSP. So these attributes, So we may not require all the attributes at a time. So, but depending on the situation, depending on your web page building, so you will be requiring to have. So these are what the attributes that are very much required for the application. So to give you a clear idea again, so just me before going to our simple application, so let me try to revise all the things. So Java server pages will be allowing us to have the dynamic content using Java and Java servlets. So at the end of the day, Java, JSP is going to be translated into, so JSP is going to be translated into a servlet, and that servlet is going to be translated into a class file. So from there, JVM will take care of it to create the servlet objects, and then the dynamic content will be given back. Okay, so this is the syntax, so where we write the code and everything. So, and we are going to use some implicit objects like request, response, out, session, and application. And then so we are going to use some attributes like exception, page context, config, auto flush, buffer, extends, info, ELI, node error page. And we are also going to use some more attributes like thread, safe, language, session, and all these are the things which are going to give us the idea on the JSP. So before going to the application, so here I have taken a small application. Okay, so this small application. So first you can see that I am going to have a form. So I'm going to have a form. So this form, okay, so this form, so let me uh, create, so let me create an Eclipse project and run this project in that. Okay, so first before running it, so let me explain you what exactly this form is meant for. Okay, so form action is equal to, so this is the only HTML. So this is only HTML. So form action is equal to welcome.jsp. So method is equal to get. So we were just talking about a get method and post method, right? So this is a get method. Okay. So now let me, okay. So before going for the application, so let me explain you all this. So we are having, okay. So now here what we are doing is, so we are asking the user to enter a number for multiplication tables, and this is the space that where he gives that number. Okay. So now let me run this. Okay. So here, so input type is equal to submit. So a lot of breaks here. So break is like for breaking the, so for breaking the line. Okay. So this one, okay, let me have a project. So go to the perspective. So let me have, okay, so let me have a new, so let me have a new dynamic web project. So in the dynamic web project, so let me say JSP start and say next. So next. Okay, save it. Okay, so here I'm going to create a project. So in this project, so I want to put the HTML code. Okay, so I want to put the HTML code. So let me create. So let me right click here. So new, okay, HTML file. So new HTML file. So I will name this HTML as form.html. So in the form.html, so I'm going to copy my code. So this code is going to, execute a form. So wherein, okay. So let me close the form also. Okay, so let me close the form and let me run this to show you how exactly it is going to be. So it has to be hosted in the server, of course. So JSP star. Okay, save it. So now what you see here, so you are going to see a browser getting opened, and that is going to be the request. Enter username. Okay, so enter username and enter number for multiplication table and submit query. So once I submit the query, where the action should go, so the action should go to welcome.jsp, and this is, as it is a get request, you are going to have these two exposed. That is what you are talking about, the security. But now there is no welcome.jsp. So now what I have to do? I have to create a welcome.jsp here. So what is this welcome.jsp is all about? So welcome.jsp is all about, okay, let me copy and then let me explain to you the code here. So let's say new. So go for a JSP file. So let me put this as welcome.jsp, small web application, of course. So let me have this code copied over here. So now if you see here, so this is the first line. So what is the first line, as I've told you? So the first line is page language is equal to Java, content is equal to, so this is like to maintain the standard. So this is like to maintain the standard, and this is like the meta. So here is where you have the, meta information, and under the title, so here is where you can have the JavaScript, CSS information also. Now you can see here, welcome. So request dot get parameter. So from where I'm getting the request over here, I'm getting the request from here. You can see here, input type is equal to text, name is equal to uname. So what I'm trying to do here, I am trying to have, okay, I'm trying to take the request. So what is this? Uname. So where is uname? This is the unit. So from here, when the user is clicking on, so when the user is clicking on, okay, so when the user is clicking on, I mean, when the user is giving some name, like let's say NATH. So what is this NATH all about? So this NATH is all about the uname. Okay, so this is the space generally. So this is the space. This is the space which I got there in the form. So which I got there in the form. So here I'm just giving NATH. So NATH is getting by which name? NATH is getting by uname. So uname is NATH. So uname is NATH, right? And then, and then you can see here. Okay, so let me clear this. So uname is NATH, and here you can see, so string value is equal to request dot get parameter of number. So where is the number? So here is the number. So here is the number. Here is the number. So now let's say I gave 3. So who is 3 over here then? So 3 is nothing but this one. So 3 is nothing but this one. Okay, so 3 I gave. So 3 is with which name? Number. So what I'm taking here? 3 as number. Okay. So now what we are saying, integer number is equal to, so always remember, whenever you are taking anything from the console or anything from the page or anywhere, always remember they will be strings by default. So they will be strings by default. So then what I'll do, I will have to convert them into integers. I have to convert them into integers. Okay, so I'll have to convert them into integers. So what is the way that I can convert it to integer? I can use the wrapper classes. I can use the wrapper classes. So what this wrapper class is saying me, u value. So I will be converting in u into an integer. So and will store it into the integer object, Okay. So now if at all that conversion is not taken place, or if somebody is giving instead of a number some kind of string, some kind of, yes, Yes, integer dot pass. Yes. So some kind of string if he is giving, so then you will get a message invalid number. You'll get a message invalid number. So otherwise, if you are going for, okay, so otherwise, if you are going for, so if you are going for, so otherwise, if you are going for the correct number, if you are going for the correct number, so you are going to, so you are going to get the result as the multiplication table. So this is the general code. And what you are using here, you are using out, you are using request. Okay. So you are using request. So what are all these? All these are the implicit objects. All these are the implicit objects. Okay. So let me submit the query. So now you can see welcome Nath and the three table got printed. So how this three table got printed, again go back. So just stop the server. So again go back here. So what I did here, so let me put them side by side so that we can have a clarity on it. Okay, so let me put all of them side by side and let me give you the clarity on it. Okay. So once you run this, okay. So once you run the form, okay, let me go back. So once you run the form, so this is the form generally. Okay, so let me cancel this. So let me close all this. Okay, so now I'll all put them one by one. Okay. So now let me explain you clearly. So now this is my form. Now this is my form. So my form is having an action welcome.jsp. So what is this action? This action is nothing but whenever somebody submits, so the form should go to this page, because this is nothing but welcome page, welcome.jsp. This is nothing but welcome.jsp. So welcome.jsp. So now while going to welcome.jsp, while going to welcome.jsp, see what it is taking. It is taking it is taking the username. It is taking the username. So what is this username? Username. So always remember this space is nothing but this one. This space is nothing but this one. So input type is equal to text. Name is equal to uname. So this space is this. So NATH. Now NATH is a part of whom? NATH is a part of uname. So if I am sending this, so what I told you in my presentation, request is the one which is going to take the inputs, take the inputs. So now how can I take the request? Get parameter, request get parameter of uname. So what is that? What is there in uname? NATH is there. NATH is there. So welcome NATH will be printed directly. So because we said this is expression type. So directly we are using the expression. Directly NATH will be printed over here. Okay, next. Enter multiplication table. Enter multiplication table. So what you have over here? So you have, what you have over here? You have type is equal to text, name is equal to number. Means this will be for number. This will be for number. So number. So what is taken here? Number. Under the number we have now 3. So that 3 will be taken into the value. But this is a string. This is a string. String 3. String 3. For example, if somebody is giving something like yes sir. If somebody is giving something like yes sir, and press enter and get submit. So what it is saying, see, invalid number. Why it is saying invalid number? Because if at all is giving 3, so what 3 will happen? 3 is a string converted into a number. So I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 10. Number, what is number? 3. 3 star print as it is. What is I? I is 1 is equal to what? So num into I. So num into I. So num into I is nothing but 3. So why I'm saying num into 3? Because this is where number into I. So number into I 3. So number into I 3. Yes. Number for yes for express yes. So when you are not giving the right number, you are going to get the exception. It will get the exception. Yes, the exception will be thrown. Okay. Now 3. So I is 2, 3, 4, 5. So it goes on and it will print the table. So now when somebody is saying yes, sir. So what is number taking now? Number is taking yes. So yes. So value of yes. So a value of yes can never be converted into a number. Can never be converted into a number. So what will happen? While parsing, there is a number format exception. There is a number format exception. As there is a number format exception, we will be giving the invalid number. So what will be giving? We will be giving the invalid number. So we'll be giving the invalid number. So in this way, we are going to deal with the form. Okay, so we are going to deal with the form. And once you get the values into the form, once you get the values into the form, so those values will be given onto the JSP page, will be given onto the JSP page, and that JSP page will take up the values. So pre-tag, like pre-code, so pre-code, so like a pre-code, so pre-code, so which will be having the same format, so it will be having the same format as we have in the as we have in the body. Okay, as we have in the body, so same kind of what do you say, font and all those things will be same. Okay, it is a tag of HTML. Okay, so in this way you are looking at the application using a small application, of course, but a lot of things to learn over here. So this is where you integrate. So now let me give you an idea about this post and get. So now if you say get request, so get request means all the username, what the number and everything is coming over here. So just imagine you have something like password. Okay, so just imagine if somebody is giving password. So let's say somebody is giving password. So how can I give the password here? So enter username, enter password. If somebody is giving password, just for the sake of understanding. Password. So input type is equal to, you have to say password. So you have to say password only. And here you say you pass. You pass. So now generally you just think of it. Generally you think of it and run it. And just imagine it's a get request. It's a get request. Once it is a get request, so for example, you are saying not 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now you can see the password is being displayed over here. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 password is being declared over here. So instead of that, yes, not secure. So instead of that, what I can say is I can go for the post request. I can go for the post request. So once I go for the post request, what happens? Once I go for the post request, what happens? Whatever the value that you are giving, so that will not be displayed. That will not be displayed. So 5, 6, 7, 8. So multiplication table 5. So now you don't see the values over there. So why you are not seeing the values? Because it is a post request. It is a post request. So now when I'm saying post request, so you are having the security on your data. So nothing is shown out. Okay, so that is a major difference between get request and the post request. Okay, so that's it. So this is all about the JSP. So JSP kind of introduction and a simple code. Okay, so right. So this is it from my side. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Hope see you in the next session with much more information. Which method is by default? So by default it is get, not post. By default it is get. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining. So hope you have a great weekend. Thank you. Thank you. Bye everyone. Bye. Bye. Thank you.